We're here with the great Michael X. Ferraro. The Phillies had a really, really interesting trade deadline where I picked at the beginning of the year. I said they're going to party like it's 1983, and I picked a Phillies-Orioles World Series. And evidently, those two teams thought they could only trade with each other because it just seemed like they made a couple of things there. They shored up their bullpen, and they picked up a fan favorite from the Orioles who is injured right now. What are your thoughts of the arrival of some of the new faces in the bullpen, especially Mr. Estevez, who seems to have been, in some ways, from my point of view, one of the better pickups?
Yeah, absolutely. Echoes of Al Holland, Sully.
By the way, Echoes of Al Holland has to be a folk album that we record.
I love it. Yeah, you gotta love the Burley closer. He really has solidified that bullpen, which was, the bullpen was lights out for a couple months, and then it really cratered. And then getting him. I mean, post All-Star break, the Phillies were the worst team in baseball for I think about 3 or 4 weeks leading into the All-Star break and right out of. But so getting him really allowed, Strom and Hoffman and Orion Kerkering has really emerged as, a really dependable third reliever for Thompson. And it just sort of set that bullpen right. And then Hayes, the righty bat, he really hits left-handers. So putting him in the outfield has been helpful as well, too. So wasn't a huge splashy trade deadline, I don't think.
But I have said, remember there was a lot of big players who were moved around every year, and it's usually someone you're not expecting, like Marco Scutaro turned out to be the biggest acquisition one year. And believe me, no one put out the headlines, Scutaro acquired, or the year, the Red Sox getting Nathan Eovaldi one year and Steve Pearce, and all of a sudden they become the postseason heroes. You don't always know how the Rubik's Cube is going to be put together. But I also think because of the way teams are approaching free agency, teams are approaching their stars, you aren't going to see a lot of superstars moved at the deadline anymore. You're going to see more stars locked up earlier, and you're going to see that most teams realize if we can't get back, dollar for dollar value, we're better off not doing it. A couple of years ago, I thought the Angels were absolutely bonkers to not trade Ohtani at the deadline because they could have gotten something.
Sure.
And I said either you sign him to a long-term contract now or you deal him. So, the getting dollar for dollar, that ship has sailed, but you got to get something back. And instead they did the worst thing they possibly could do, which was they went for it. And it didn't work. But, acquiring players, it's like the trade deadline has become less about what big superstar can we get at the deadline and more becoming like the TV show Supermarket Sweep, where you're running through the aisles with the shopping cart, grabbing relievers. It just seems to be how many, can we get a fourth starter or fresh arms?
Yeah. Tanner Banks, the Phil's got Tanner Banks from the White Sox. I mean,
and that's turned out pretty well, right? I mean, Estevez and Banks have been pitching pretty well for them and giving them the depth. I always find it funny, though, when people, they traded away Sir Anthony Dominguez, which I will admit, the first 40 times I heard his name, I thought his name was Sir Anthony Dominguez.
He had been such a good actor. He was just Anthony, and then the Queen knighted him. That's right.
Well, he did one of the greatest King Lear in the history of the Royal Shakespeare Company, and then came over to pitch for the Phillies. And was he on the World Series team? He was on the team that went to the World Series, right? Or no?
Yes, sure was. Yeah.
Okay. I forgive me. I know the 80 team better than the 2022 team. Right. But he's now with Baltimore. But I actually think it was a pretty decent trade deadline. I mean, they didn't make the giant splash, but they they tinkered with the team. And you're right. When you were heading into the All-Star break and in July, they were skidding. They were skidding
Yes.
big time. They needed to do something because the one thing that because it's they had a losing July and they wound up having a winning August, and this weekend was their first loss in September. So they've been 20. They've gone 20-14 since the end of July. So that's not bad. But
Right.
the one thing Dombrowski is good at is winning now. I'm here to win right now. And so I trust Dombrowski to tinker with the engine and say, all right, what do we need to do with this? What do we need to do here? Because their window of opportunity of winning a World Series is right now.
Yes, agreed. 100%.
But
Yeah, I mean, we could have swung for Jazz Chisholm, and the Yankees wound up getting him. And clearly, I mean, he would have been a nice fit because the way he moved to third base. But hey, maybe we'll get to play him in the World Series. Maybe the Phillies, Yankees.
Who are you playing at third these days? Is it Clemens? Who
yeah, it's been a little bit of a committee, but it is more Clemens. I mean, Sosa can play. Weston Wilson actually plays a little third too.
I like Weston Wilson. Weston Wilson, one of
Yes.
those people. Every time I check in on him, he has 2 hits. So he's hitting well.
And I know you're an aficionado of the cycle, and so he had one of the more dramatic ones this year, needing the double on his last at bat. So that was nice to see.
By the way, Michael Ferraro and I have known each other since 2007, and for whatever reason, that little snarky comment you just heard is based on the fact that I am fascinated by players hitting for the cycle, and you it does not faze you. It's not like you look down on it. It's just you don't understand what the deal is.
Right, because and I love you, Sully. I wrote a book called "Unbelievable" about the greatest numbers in sports history.
Yes,
but to me, it's a random bit of business. I mean, three doubles in a homer game is not, nobody cares. You're just a blip. But if you hit for the cycle, my God,
it's fun. It's called
it's
fun.
The complete set. It's fun. I get it.
It's fun. It's fun. Why have you forgotten fun?